the letter C is the input text at sub I is 0. That's the first letter in my string. I 2 lower that, so the C is a lowercase c, and I'm going to get the 2 lower is going to return the integer equivalent of the decimal value that corresponds to the lowercase letter c, which if you look in the ASCII character set is 99. Then I'm going to subtract 2 lower of the character A. 2 lowercase letter A will be 97. So I subtract 97 from 99, I get 2, and I increment the letter count array element 2, which is the element that corresponds to C in my array. Does that make sense? So that will keep track of all of my letters for me. And in this other part, I'll have to go through and look at each letter and see if it's a punctuation. So I could say else if or I could say J equals find punctuation instead of finding punctuation in my overall string, though, I could find this current letter and if I find that current letter in the punctuation, then I'm going to have to determine whether I have found a new word or not. So how will I know if I found a new word or not if I found punctuation? The only way I'll know if it's a new word or not is if I know I've already started processing a word, or if I have been processing punctuation. So I'm going to need a Boolean So if I found some punctuation and I'm processing a word, then I add one to words. Except It's not quite that simple, because if I found punctuation, if I'm in a word, I want to add one to words and turn off the in a word flag, right? Because I'm no longer in a word if I found punctuation. But if I'm not in a word and I found some punctuation, I don't add one to words, and I don't have to do anything, do I? So what do I have to do? Okay, so it's not punctuation. In word equals true. All right, so how does this work? Let's talk about an example again. All right, so here's a phrase that we could enter. When I get the first letter, that's not going to be in the punctuation string. It is going to be a letter of the alphabet. We're going to add 1 to the letter count for the letter T. We're not going to find it in the punctuation, so J will not be greater than 0. Oh, but that's not even right. It probably should be greater than or equal to 0, because if it finds the first letter, it will be 0. Anyway, back to what I was saying. If it finds it in the punctuation string, so in this case it's not going to, because T is not in the punctuation string. So we'll go to the else part and we'll say in word equals true. That means we found a letter that belongs to a word. So when we find the end of that word, we can count that as a word. And then we'll hit H, and it will just say in word is true. Then we'll hit E, and we'll just say in word is true. Then we'll hit the space. If our find correctly finds that in the punctuation string, then we'll say if in word. We've been setting that to true, so we know that's true. Now we'll add 1 to words and set in word to false. So then when we hit the T, it doesn't find it in the punctuation string, and it will set in word back to true. If we had multiple spaces here, or a period in a space or whatever, as long as it keeps finding something that's not in the punctuation string, okay, or I'm sorry, that is in the punctuation string, it's going to test to see if in word is set, by setting that to false here, we will not add more to words for those additional spaces in there. That makes sense? And then this can be eliminated. We don't need that one anymore because we're not going to use that. But we will need to increment I. We could change this to a for loop, or we could just increment I at the end. Up to you. Oh. Yeah. And then we would output everything here after the loop. But now that we're doing more advanced work, I would encourage you to look at some of the more advanced things that you can do, some of the additional functions, member functions that you can get, and use those to your advantage. Any questions? Okay. Well, if there's not anything else that you guys want to talk about tonight, I'm going to put this session into a video and figure out some way to post it so that you can go back and review it if you want to. Otherwise, we'll probably have another session like this next week. If you have any questions in the meantime, be sure and contact me. I'll try to be logged on to Google Plus, you know, from time to time during the week. So if you have any questions, we can have an instant chat or a short video conference if you need to do that, or whatever works for you. Okay, and I know there was a suggestion to have this on Sunday afternoon. Would Sunday afternoon be a good time for both of you guys? Okay. Okay, so Sunday afternoon about 2 o'clock. All right, well, I guess I will plan on having the next session Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock, and I'll put that up in our schedule. If there's a problem with that, I'll let you guys know on the online classroom. All right, and I guess that will conclude our first session, and I will see you guys online. All right, thanks, bye.